Whatever has your whole heart will either hold you or it won't. Samson found that out because he skipped straight to the one thing he wanted and missed everything Scripture says has to come first. Today, we're discussing the order I almost missed too. I am Katie Ann, and this is Beyond Believing, episode 106. The other day, I was out on a walk listening to the book of Judges, and I got to chapter 16, the Samson and Delilah chapter. And this is not new, but as it was unfolding in my ears, I remember thinking, out loud practically, he is clearly acting foolishly. Painfully, obviously foolish. This woman has already tried to take him down 3 separate times. 3 times she's asked him for the secret of his strength, and 3 times he's watched what happens when he lies to her. The trap springs, and somehow he still hands her more rope the next time she asks. I'm shaking my head at a man who lived 3,000 years ago thinking, how did you not see this? And then a second thought landed right behind that first one, and it stopped me nearly in the middle of the sidewalk. I wonder how obvious it is to the people who love us when we are doing the exact same thing. Because the answer is yes. Of course it is. It was obvious to my closest friends. It was obvious to my family. And that is exactly why Proverbs tells us to guard our hearts above everything else. Because the forbidden woman doesn't hide in the shadows. She stands at the street corner. She's watching. She is specifically looking for the heart that isn't guarded. And she is patient because she knows unguarded hearts eventually walk right past her. And here's the part I wasn't proud of on that walk. I wasn't just narrating his story. I was remembering mine. Because since my divorce, I have had more than one relationship that looked like protection and wasn't. I was caught. Foolishly. Myself. Not in the sense that I'm confessing some scandal to you right now, because I'm not, and I'm not going to, but in the sense that I know exactly what it feels like to be the one everyone else could see clearly, while I was standing right in the middle of it, insisting it was fine. It's an incredibly humbling lesson to learn, and it comes at an immense price. Not just the relationship itself, but the price of finding out how far you'd wandered from the wisdom you thought you already had. Because here's what's true about me. I thought I was doing everything a woman is supposed to do. I stayed married for 17 years. Not out of weakness, out of real vows and real conviction. I showed up, did the work, prayed, served, except I didn't even know that I never actually had the wisdom I thought I did. I had learned the wisdom of the world, dressed up to look like the wisdom of the Bible, and it did not have the capacity to carry me. So let's take you into that chapter the way I heard it on my walk, because I don't think this is really a story about Samson being weak. Well, that's not the whole story anyways. I think it's a story about a man who skipped every step Scripture says has to come first in every godly relationship. You see, Samson was set apart before he was even born. A Nazirite marked by a vow his own mother made over him in Judges 13. His strength was never actually about his hair. The hair was the visible sign of a covenant he did not design. And it doesn't seem like something he ever fully delighted in either. And that's just me being judgmental. In Judges 16:4, it says, afterward he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And I actually don't even know if that's how you say it. So don't quote me on that pronunciation. This one verse, it says he loved a woman. But if you go back through his whole story, his first wife, the woman in Gaza, and this is the only time Scripture actually says Samson loved anyone. Here's the part that stopped me cold that day during my walk. Because she pressed him 3 separate times for the secret of his strength. 3 times he lied to protect himself, which tells you he knew. And then verse 16, where she pressed him hard with her words day after day and urged him until his soul was vexed to death. Judges 16, verses 15 through 17 says, "And she said to him, 'How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies.' And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told her all his heart and said to her, 'A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man.'" Now, this is the part I want you to hear. He told her all his heart. And verse 20 is the one specifically that undid me when it says, "But he did not know that the Lord had left him." He didn't even know. How is that possible? He didn't trust first. He didn't delight first. He skipped straight to the ache and handed his whole heart to this woman who promised to fill it the fastest. Now that's what I'm seeing as I'm listening to this. Here's what stopped me later in that same walk, because as I was pondering about this, Psalm 37 came to my mind, which reminds us to delight in the Lord. But it isn't just one verse about delighting in the Lord, it's a whole pattern. 7 specifically that I pointed out as I was reading through this for how a heart actually gets to the place where God gives it what it's aching for. And Samson, I think, is skipping straight past all 7 to the very last one. In Psalm 37:3, it says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and befriend faithfulness." So step 1 is trust. Before anything is delivered, before you know how the story ends. And there's a special little bonus at the end of this on specifically how to do this, which is to befriend faithfulness. Psalm 37:4 says to delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So step 2 is to delight. The one we could stop at because it's the one with the promise attached, but look what comes next. Because in verse 5, it says, "Commit your way to the Lord and trust in him, and he will act." So step 3, it is not commit to an outcome. It is commit your way. The actual daily walking it out before you see anything change kind of commit. This is how you befriend faithfulness. And then verse 7 reminds us, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." So steps 4 and 5 are in this same breath, stillness and waiting together, because you cannot fake one without practicing the other. Then verses 7 through 10, and I'll be honest, this is the part of the psalm that jumped out to me most post-divorce, because it says, "Fret not yourself. Do not let your peace unravel, watching what looks like it's working out for your ex, or how he seems to be getting everything he wants while you are left to suffer the consequences alone." So surrender the anxiety, the comparison, and the fear about how long it's taking and how it is unfolding. That is step 6. And then in verse 11, it says, "But the meek shall inherit the land and delight themselves in abundant peace." This is step 7. Did you catch what just happened over the course of this psalm specifically? Because it opens with a reminder not to fret and how you should delight in the Lord in verse 4. And then it closes by what happens when you do all of those things, by delighting in abundant peace in verse 11. This is what you can expect from the Lord when you go through all of these and follow this process. It is not an accident. It is not something you just stumble upon. The peace you're aching for isn't a different destination than delighting in God. It's what's waiting on the other side of it with open arms once you've walked the whole way there instead of trying to skip past or find some shortcut. Samson wanted verse 4. He wanted to be known and loved and matter to somebody, and that desire is not wrong. But he reached for it directly, skipping past trust, skipping past delighting in the Lord and giving him his full heart, skipping the commitment and the stillness and the patience and the surrender straight to a woman who promised to fill the ache immediately. There is no verse 11 without the 6 verses that come before it. 66 days. That is how long it took from the conversation that ended my marriage to the day I moved out. September 6th to November 11th of 2022. And there was a night alone in a new house with no bed set up yet for my 5 kids, where I didn't even want to go to my own bed. And into that exact silence, I heard these 6 words. Now that I have your attention. I want to be honest with you because that wasn't verse 11. That was step 1, just starting. Trust, which was cracked open in the dark with nothing resolved yet and no proof that any abundant peace was coming. I did not arrive at abundant peace that night. I'm not going to lie. Some days I'm still back at verse 4. Having to intentionally choose delight all over again before I can move on to what comes next. Samson skipped to the end, and I used to too. And quite honestly, some days it is very tempting to do so again. But here's what I actually want to leave you with today. Not the whole psalm memorized, just one honest check on where you are in it. Are you still refusing to trust because trusting before you can see the outcome feels too risky? Have you delighted in him yet? Or are you still hoping the desire shows up before you do? Are you committing your way, the daily, unglamorous walking it out, or waiting for him to act before you'll commit to anything? Can you be still? Can you wait patiently with him, not just for him? That does not mean, my friend, that you sit and do nothing. And it does not mean that there is no physical reprieve or comfort available to you ever. Those are lies from the enemy. The anxiety, the comparison, the fretting over what looks like it's working out for someone else. Have you surrendered that? Or are you still carrying it? Are you still so focused on what it looks like your ex is getting away with that you are bearing the responsibility for? Because verse 11 is real. Abundant peace is real. It's just on the other side of the 6 verses before it, not instead of them. If you've never taken a real 7 days to walk through that order, I built something for exactly that. It's called Roots. It's a free 7-day devotional to help you start rooting your heart's delight in the one that can actually hold it. You can find it at roots.coachkatieann.com. And if you're ready to go deeper than 7 days, I would love to talk. The Rooted Clarity Call is a private 45-minute conversation. No pressure, no performance required. Book yours at coachkatieann.com/call. The link is in the show notes. Next week, I want to show you what it actually looks like to learn to receive love, not just give it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Have a great week, friend. I'll see you then.